Max Walker-Williams, and today I have the absolute pleasure of being with Andrew Gastwirth, the Chief Innovation Officer at DLA Piper, who is also a Governing Council member of Hedera Hashgraph. Andy, thanks so much for taking the time to speak to me here at Davos.
Thanks very much for having me.
How are you finding the event? How's it been for you?
Well, this is my first time here, so
is it? Oh, wow.
I didn't quite know what to expect. I had heard some things, but I did myself a favor and said, let's not pre-think what is going to happen and
no
just
judgment.
let it happen. Right?
Yeah.
So I found it really incredible. The most important thing to me was just given COVID and just the nature of how global we are. There were many people I've worked with for almost 3 years now that I had never met in person. So my main goal was to actually go see those people and meet them in person, because there's nothing like an in-person meeting. So that was wonderful to do. And then I've heard the word serendipity used a lot at Davos, and I think that it's a very fitting word. The number of conversations that I've had, and even meeting someone like yourself, it's just these meetings that happen, and there's so many areas of congruency, either things that you're working on or life experience, and that's really been the best part of Davos for me.
Brilliant. And there seems to be two sort of facets, isn't there? There's the organised events and meetings, but then there's also the spontaneous ones, the people that you bump into and everything, and that can be just as fantastic, can't it?
Yeah, it was easy. It was made easy for me by Hedera and also the folks at DLA Piper. There were clients either that were having panels that I could participate in. Many of those folks I had met before, and also with Hedera, I had panels that I was participating in. The other organized events, I went to them when I could. But really, I think the spontaneous meetings are the people that you meet where you're really going to have a deep conversation and some follow through from it. That is what I've put my focus on and worried less about the organized events.
Okay, and just to give people, because I think there's a slight disconnect in the Hedera ecosystem between everyone sort of on the outside, if you like, of Hedera, sort of the fans of Hedera and the investors in HBAR and alike. They obviously recognise the brands that are the Governing Council members, but they aren't familiar. There's a bit of I think the bridge needs to be built between the people behind the brands, because the brands are just names. They're just a collection of people.
Right.
And I think it's quite important and good, especially as we've spoken quite a bit off camera. And I think you're an incredibly interesting man, and you're a man of the world, which is why I was so surprised.
I think I bore my children, but
they might disagree. I was surprised that this is your first year, because you are so well travelled and experienced. And so I just thought it'd be great for people to get a sort of sense of who you are initially, and just give us a bit about your background. Where did you grow up? Your experience.
So I grew up in the New York area, which was really a wonderful place to grow up and be exposed to a lot of culture and a lot of different types of people. After going to school, I came out of school. I worked in financial services for a while. Started my own consulting company. The financial industry was very interesting to me, but it also made me realize that I had a deep interest in technology. So kind of the merging of those two areas was how I wanted to set out my career from there. After 9/11 happened, I had a strong desire to work in public sector, and I ended up going to a large system integrator and helping to stand up the TSA in the United States, as well as work on other government programs, which led me to really working a lot in the defense industrial base and the Department of Defense and State Department. I ended up at Microsoft. I was there for 7 years as what's called a digital advisor. It's basically a digital transformation consultant. That's where I really discovered working with blockchain, and also AI and IoT were the main things that I was really focused on and wanted to explore. And after Microsoft, I came in to be the Chief Transformation Officer at DLA Piper, which eventually became the Chief Innovation Officer. I own the IT shop, which is a traditional CIO role, as well as the innovation shop, and then work that globally. And about 4.5 years ago, I joined the firm about 5 years ago. About 4.5 years ago, I happened to come up to New York because there was this new blockchain, Hedera, and I know you're not supposed to say blockchain with Hedera. It is a hash graph. But let's just use DLT moving forward.
Fine.
But there was this new DLT that needed to be explored. We were building a solution at DLA Piper that really didn't have even a project name at that point, but it was looking at tokenizing real-world assets, and we were attempting to do it on Ethereum, and that was not going to work for us. It was too slow, it was too expensive, it just wasn't going to get anywhere. So,
does Ethereum 2.0 solve that?
No, look, everything is an improvement, an iteration, but especially compared to what Hedera has to offer, and we'll move into that, I guess.
Yes.
But compared to what Hedera has had to offer for years now, from a speed and a low cost and a trust and a transparency perspective, Ethereum has never gotten back to where Hedera has been and has improved over time.
Yeah.
So it came up to New York, and I happened to meet Scott Teal, who is the other co-founder of our platform, Toco, which I guess we'll get into that too. And we realized we had been working on something very similar, but he was in Hong Kong and I was in Washington, D.C. And we came together, we talked to Hedera, and that week we actually walked out agreeing that we were going to join the council.
Really?
Because we saw the value of Hedera, and we knew that was the solution that we needed to move forward what we wanted to do with tokenization.
That speaks volumes to the sort of Hedera's offering, if you like, because companies of your size generally don't do anything, a year is a week. They move at a glacier pace.
Well, I would even say, and I love working at a law firm, a global law firm, but certainly, law firms are not the most progressive of industries, or legal is not the most progressive industry, but I'm very fortunate that the leadership team, both at the time and the new leadership team that's come in over the past couple of years, has been very progressive and has realized that it's very important to not only differentiate yourself in the marketplace, but also to really look at not just leveraging technology. I mean, innovation is process, it's people, it's the tool sets too. But when you're doing something with innovation, and this goes back to my digital transformation background, is, it's one thing to do, let's say, create a system or a process that benefits your organization. But it's another thing to actually create something that benefits your organization, but also benefits, in our case, your client.
Yes.
And if it's another thing, another level, if it benefits you, it benefits your client, and it benefits their downstream customers. If you're building a solution that has that value chain, now you're really onto something, and that's where my leadership team has understood that we need to put the focus on actually creating that value chain and when we're building innovative solutions.
Okay, and that compounds then, doesn't it? Because you do the work once and it benefits a ways down the road.
Benefits a lot of folks, and also, certainly from a standpoint of feeling that what you're working on has impact and has value and has meaning.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to get behind those type of projects.
And it was clearly attractive. I don't know exactly, and forgive me, the timing of you becoming a governing council member, but does it help? It must help for other large corporations to see similar peers already in the Hedera space.
Yeah, I mean, certainly.
How much comfort does that give?
Well, yeah, and I think maybe we should even take a step back with Hedera. Certainly, one of the reasons that we joined, in addition to the technology and everything that brings to bear, and the trust and the transparency, the other thing was the governing council, which is now I think up to 28 council members and growing. Will grow, I believe, up to 39 over time. But when you look across the portfolio of the companies, the thing that was most impressive to us was, certainly some of those were already our clients, so we knew that, okay, these are quality organizations and we trust them.
And there's a relationship between you and them. And
exactly.
Yeah.
So we could kind of partner on that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is the global nature of it was very important to us as a global law firm. I believe that if you're looking at a certain geography and only looking at that geography, you're being very myopic in the way that you're going to build out solutions and drive innovation.
Yeah.
The other part of it was the wonderful diversity of industries that were on the council, and that was very important because as a law firm, we have the luxury of actually working across a lot of industries and seeing that, but it's very important from a partnership perspective that you have the diversity, the inclusion, and the insight of different types of industries actually in this governing council. The council's really run almost as an LLC. It is an LLC, and everybody on the council runs a node. So that everybody is really invested in making sure that this network and more important, the counsel and the governance, because without governance, technology is nothing.
Yeah.
Having that at our disposal is what made us comfortable in choosing this as our platform that we were going to do our business on.
Yeah, I guess it's actually, you've raised an interesting point there, because it's almost a double opportunity for DLA Piper, because not only can you build your own solutions to improve what you might be doing for yourselves, internally and things, but you also can build or help and partner to build products for your clients who are looking for turnkey solutions. They might not be looking to develop on a network.
Yeah, and I think that raises a really very, very important point, is you can't be credible doing everything. Yeah. I mean, you can even look across, our law firm. We have certain practices that we are work within, and then there are certain areas of law that we don't engage in. It's not our specialty or not our area, and that is important. If you're a trusted advisor, especially as we are, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm a business professional within the organization, but the lawyers and the business professionals are trusted advisors to our clients. The thing that we've actually tried to do is, through partnerships with other organizations, whether it be council members or other industry partners of those council members, is bringing the right solutions to the table for our clients to say, look, my interest as a trusted advisor is in your success. Sometimes that's going to include me, sometimes it's not. But you should always know that I'm looking out for your best interest, and in doing so, I'm going to make sure that we put the right pieces of the puzzle in front of you and give you a solution that we know is viable.
Give you the tools that you need to do what you need to do. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And just so for people who aren't familiar with DLA Piper, can you give us an indication of sort of the size of the business? Because I believe you're one of, it's always changing, isn't it? There's you, and you're one of the largest law firms in the world.
We are. We're definitely in the top 3. If you're counting it by revenue or people or number of offices,
numbers if you can.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
just so people get a sense of how big this is.
We are one of the world's biggest law firms. And again, there are different ways to look at it and count it, and people are going to look at it in a different way if it benefits them.
Yeah,
and
of course.
But the main thing that we've really focused on is, again, is that don't be myopic. Work across the areas of law where you can be impactful and successful, and work across geographies so that you're not myopic in your approach to global solutions.
So how many people are at DLA Piper, for example?
So there's about, including business professionals, there's 4,000 some odd in the United States, and I think it's about 10,000 or so internationally outside of the United States.
So 14,000.
Give
or take on the payroll.
Number. And certainly for large projects and litigation, maybe there's more with contract attorneys coming in and out, but that's a safe number to say.
And in terms of gross sort of revenue per year, do you
published in the United States, we're right around $2 billion in revenue as of this year, similar in international, we've had our and I would love to delve into this. Is one of the things that we did at DLA Piper, and again, I thank my leadership team for being so progressive. We were the first large law firm to really make a move to the cloud. We happen to consume the Microsoft cloud. We work very closely with them, and they're wonderful clients of ours. But when COVID hit, in 36 hours, we were fully remote successfully. And my leadership.
Sorry, say that again. So in 36 hours from lockdown, you were back up and running online from everyone at home.
And we were never offline. The difference is, officially, there were some stragglers. It was shocking to me to hear that there were certain people who had a desktop computer in the office
at work
and no computer at home. And that's what makes up the 36 hours, was providing about 200 people with computers for their homes within that 36 hours.
And did they all have internet? Or
no, actually there were about 40 of them that didn't even have internet.
Didn't even have internet access?
Right. Wow. So it was providing them with a wireless card to get them going, and then eventually bringing broadband in.
And you sorted all that out for them?
Sorted all of that out for them. But the important thing was, or the great thing was, everyone before that, 2018, 17, 18, when we moved to cloud, they were, that's cool, we're moving to cloud and nobody else has, in legal, so this is a differentiator. But it was COVID that really made everyone understand that. I got a call from the leadership team and they said, this has been a Herculean effort, 36 hours.
You're telling me.
And I said, thank you. But what I really want to point out to you is that over the past 2 years, that's the important work that was done, because before COVID, we were working remotely from an office.
Yeah.
Now we're working remotely, not from an office.
COVID just underlined the importance of what you were doing years ago.
But it makes no difference to us.
The timing is impeccable.
Right, yeah. And actually the flexibility and the ubiquitous access that we had provided people ahead of COVID and their level of productivity really allowed them to kind of leapfrog into COVID. I mean, we've had our best financial years in 20, 21, and 22 consecutively. Yeah. So it's been great to see people recognize that it has to be a business objective, but taking technology and using it to improve business really is very meaningful.
And also then people see, the sort of leadership team see something transformative be so impactful and successful, they're maybe more willing to look at other, big solutions and be a bit more open-minded about.
Yeah, and that's something that I've always prided myself on is, you have to take risk if you're going to do anything meaningful. Yeah. And my mother had a great saying, which was, nothing worth doing shouldn't scare the shit out of you. That was, I have to quote it accurately. Apologize for the language,
that's a quote.
Right?
Yeah.
But that was it is a great saying. But what I've always done is I've been very careful about saying, okay, what are the 3 or 4 ways that I get to a return on investment or meet the requirements or the metrics of the business case? If I make it on one of those at 100% and another one at 25%, fantastic. Yeah. If I made it over 3 or 4 of them at 33% or 25%, I still got there and I mitigated risk. And that's what's allowed us to build up good confidence with the firm, that as we've taken on projects, I can say wholeheartedly all of what you would consider IT projects or innovation projects, they have delivered on the promise from a business perspective of what we set out to do. And that should always, in a business which is there for profit, we're the largest in the United States. We're the largest supplier of pro bono services. We do a lot of great work on that side too. But so it's not always
facilitates that.
But right, your business needs to be sustainable, and part of that sustainability is staying in business. So it's been very important for me to teach my team to look at things differently and be much more consultative and in bed with the business, looking at it, even though they're highly technical people, making sure that they're always keeping their eye on what is the business objective and using technology to get there.
And looking at the bottom line, I guess as well. Yeah, always. Okay, and it's. I hope that there's a culture change, but at the moment, and I think that's happening. There is a shift that the profit is no longer a dirty word, because people seem to understand that things have to be sustainable and people have to be paid well for their value. But to do that, you've got to charge money and make a profit,
exactly. And
then you can do all the good work sustainably, and indefinitely, and it compounds. So talking about the governing council member, then give us sort of like a day in the life of. So when because you meet once a month, is it?
So the council meets once a month, and
is that in person now? Because it was with COVID, it was on Zoom.
It's quarterly. They meet in person,
right?
And then
quarterly
on
in
the
person.
Off months, we do what everybody else in the world is doing. You're on Zoom, you're on Teams, you're on whatever you're on. And we make the best of it in that regard. But the importance again of just like Davos here. Nothing replaces, in my opinion, a face-to-face meeting. It doesn't need to be all the time, but it always provides more impact and value to me. And in general, I find that with face-to-face meetings, with the video meetings, with audio meetings, you really there's not a level of trust there, because you never know, is it being recorded? Is someone else there? Those type of things. And even if that's subconscious, even if you're talking to someone that you fully trust, when you have a face-to-face meeting, there are things that can be said, and there's body language that can be seen. Nuances, and that's probably, to me, the most important thing, is you're going to have a different meeting. I know work has changed. I know that we'll probably never go back to what it was before, but there still needs to be some of that human interaction, in my opinion. But to the governing council, the meetings are very structured, and one of the things that I don't want to forget to mention, because this is also very important, and I hope that the overall Hedera community, or anybody who's considering looking at a DLT, will consider this, is that we have full transparency across the council. All of the meeting minutes that we have, everything is taken down and everything is published. we'll only go and review it for accuracy, essentially.
Right.
We don't hide anything from the publishing of these minutes. It's very important to us from an ecosystem perspective that people not only know that the trust and the transparency is in the actual DLT itself,
the software,
but that the way that we operate is there is that transparency. And I also do mention that, you know, sometimes I hear some noise across the internet, and certainly there's no shortage of noise in the internet.
That's fair.
But I hear, well, you know, the governing council, it's just a way to cater to themselves, and that really couldn't be further from the truth. You know, that's where hopefully the transparency encourages people to see, as well as the number of paths that people outside the council can pursue to get help to build their apps on Hedera. This help is free. The amount of open source and reference architecture code that is available for anybody to consume, and we're huge on open source. If we build a solution, at least a part of that is always going to go back and become part of the open source community. And then the other part of it is the various ways that Hashgraph Association, HBAR Foundation, and CorpCom, which I run, which I'll come to in a little bit. Yeah. And actually, I co-chair with Sai Prasad, who's a wonderful co-chair with me on the CorpCom. But all of these areas are ways to get that help, almost like a solution architect type of help, a business architect or analyst type of help for your use case, and then the actual technical help to get you to market, along with the potential to get funding to do this work. Yeah. So we very, very much want to see people out in the ecosystem coming in with use cases that are protected from an IP and an idea perspective, but get them to market, because we can't rely just on the enterprises of the council to be the ones that are going to build solutions if we don't have a much wider ecosystem building solutions, and again, at that same level of trust and transparency, it won't be a successful ecosystem over time.
No, and I completely agree. And I also think that Hedera and a lot of the governing council members, their ambitions clearly way bigger than that. It's not an echo chamber for just, you know, a boys club, if you like. This is, we want the whole world to be using this, utilizing this, or benefiting in some way.
Yeah, and you know, I would say all of these companies, I'm running through them in my mind, but I can't think of a single company that doesn't have a large customer base. And when you look at that, you know that customers and vendors, it's a symbiotic relationship. Yeah. Excuse me. So it's not just about what can we provide downstream, or what can you buy from us. There has to be value there again. Otherwise, people will go elsewhere. So bringing more of the ecosystem in and having more capabilities, having more options for people is what the council is actually, again, looking for.
Okay. And so does it ever get, in the council meetings and things, does it ever get heated, or are there disagreements when there's something quite important to vote about? Because
yeah, and I think that
which is healthy. That's what
I was just about to say. Healthy was the word I was going to use. Yeah. Is look, I've been married 28 years. I have a wonderful wife, wonderful marriage, 3 great kids. But do we agree on everything? No. There has to be open discussion, and discussion is what fosters compromise and resolution. And
then your wife tells you what you think.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then you come to consensus.
Here we are 28 years later.
Yeah.
So, but I love you, Laura. So there are people with very different views. Yeah. And again, you keep reminding me of great things to mention. We have. Let's take DLA Piper.
Yeah.
We're not the only law firm in the council. Denton's is there too, and they're a wonderful global law firm also. Yeah. But we have two sayings: competimates or frenemies, right? Yeah. Sometimes we'll go against each other out in business, and sometimes we'll partner together. It's the same thing in the council. People have to be honest about their views, rationalize them. You just can't say no and not talk about it.
Can't be emotional.
Right.
Yeah.
But eventually a vote is going to get taken. And I've been on a couple of votes where it wasn't my point of view and my choice, but ultimately it was going to work. Yeah. And if it was going to work, then I can live with that and I can vote for it to get it done. And we do very formally go through motion and second and approval and any objections. So we give people the option to stop the marriage, if you will, at any point in time. Okay,
and so there are still some seats left on the governing council, and I know that again, this comes down to, unlike yourselves, a lot of these onboarding of new governing council members takes a long time. And I know you probably can't discuss who, because I think there's 2 potentially lined up, I think that was right, new governing council members. Can you touch on anything about them? Is it sort of the industry or?
I'm not going to answer that, but I can say that both of them are wonderful additions to the platform. They're different in critical ways than other council members that we have, and they have already had very heavy engagement in things like CorpCom, which we'll talk about.
Yes.
So I'm very excited for them to announce when they're comfortable. And yes, enterprises have to go through a lot of I's and T's and crossing and dotting to get ready.
Desks, yeah.
But when they announce, I'll be very excited for them to officially be able to participate in everything.
And of course, no one will hold you to it. But in terms of timing, can you see one or both being announced this year?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Okay, that's good. And I presumably there's loads of talks going on all over the place with other potential governing council members.
Yeah.
But have you got one in mind that is there a business out there that your sort of personal wish list?
So, and again, it would be unfair to name names, although I would love to pressure
But this is
some.
you. But let me push you on that just slightly, because this is you personally, and people understand that we're people, and you can have your personal opinion. So if you're a massive Apple fan, for example, you can say, well, you're personally, not speaking for DLA Piper, but I'm an Apple. I love Apple products. So I'd love to see Apple on the council. So do you feel like are you comfortable to say for you personally?
So well, let me put it this way.
Okay.
I would love to see a large global logistics and shipping company like a Maersk.
Right, okay.
As an example.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. And what role would you like to, what's the reasoning behind that?
Well, you in their case, again, have friends that work there on the innovation team. Very innovative company, very progressive thinking. Certainly in Copenhagen, where I believe their headquarters is, they like to get things done too.
Right.
The trains run on time, if you will.
Yeah.
And they have a ton of IoT data and intelligence about what they're doing, location tracking. Those would be wonderful use cases brought into the council that I think other members not just within the council, but also across the ecosystem. And I'd love to hop into ESG as part of the discussion. I think they could be an enormous driver of an ESG initiative accordingly. So a company like that, and I threw out a name because you asked me to use an example.
I understand.
But
not specifically them necessarily.
The characteristics are the more important part of it.
Understood.
Certainly other logistics companies, there are similar ones, but I think that would be a great addition to the council.
Where do you see Hedera in 5 years' time? What in your best case sort of where do you see it? What does it do with the governing councils now full, hopefully, and what's it doing?
So enterprises still are in the process of adopting DLT, and I can say that holds true for the council members. There are some council members that are moving very quickly. And again, DLA Piper is one of them. We already have a production system, Toco, up on the platform.
And Atmo as well with...
Atmo is another one. And several council members have production apps that are generating good transactions per second for the network. Other council members are taking longer to get there. And, sometimes that's regulatory barriers that they're facing. Sometimes it's just company culture. There's many different reasons why it might be slow. But what I would like to see is that we do have a full set of council members, that we've increased the diversity, again, from a global and an industry perspective. Not happy to see people double up on council members in a given industry, but I'd like to see them explore even more industries accordingly. It just will make for a better council. And I do believe that between smaller companies who really are the very progressive part of the Hedera ecosystem and a necessary component. And again, please don't have the mindset that this is just about the council members. This is about the overall ecosystem. If those companies continue to develop, and again, especially in the ESG space from what I've seen globally, that will be the launch pad for enterprises to be able to consume those services of those more progressive companies. and we will see a large adoption by enterprises on the Hedera ecosystem.
What does ESG stand for, sorry?
Environmental, social, and governance, or you could say it as sustainability.
Okay,
but I did want to. ESG is what's really being used within the large enterprises, and the three different components of it are really important, and certainly I have a different focus on them, or at least a different entry
approach,
into sustainability than some of the other folks in the council have.
Right. Okay. And with sorry, let me start again. So with the, in terms of use cases, which is so important, to it's the whole point of that's why we're all here effectively, isn't it? It's the use cases. So are there any interesting use cases that you can talk about, or you've heard about coming on to Hedera potentially soon?
So we have FIS WorldPay, who has just launched their use case, and it's going to greatly simplify cross-border type of payments. Yeah. We have Standard Bank, which is doing wonderful things with stablecoin, and also with supply chain, circular economies, and actually tracking in real time shipments.
What is it Standard Bank? Sorry to interrupt, but what is it Standard Bank are doing exactly? Because I don't fully understand that.
Yeah, so Standard Bank has basically developed a stablecoin which can be used in different geographies, and that way it simplifies basically doing business across different currencies or borders. And also they're really taking a lead in helping to drive some of that logistics and supply chain, but certainly, again, back to the other, they're not a large shipping company, they're a bank, right? Yes. So, there's a lot that's going on, and actually the one to speak to on that would be Ian Putter, who is here at Davos, and
thank you.
Could go into incredible depth on Standard Bank.
Yeah.
I see a tremendous amount of use cases coming in that are related to sustainability.
Yeah.
And it's all across the board. It's not just, offsetting carbon or validating and verifying, what has been offset. It goes all the way towards, we had one that came in and they're actually doing sustainability for mortgages.
Right. Oh, wow.
So, basically they're originating mortgages, and they're able to do it where, for instance, if you didn't have a down payment yet for your house, but you knew you were going to be looking to buy a house, they're actually structuring a way to make an investment in and have it be a diversified investment that's paying a higher interest rate than traditional banks are doing.
Right.
And basically then opportunistically looking to be able to flip them into a mortgage when they find the right house for them.
Wow, okay.
There's that's a really neat one. They're working with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac on their side. Certainly either of those organizations would be wonderful council members too.
Yeah.
But we have seen a lot with also on the carbon sustainability side. We have several use cases that have come through on that. On the DLA submitted a use case which is under development now for litigation funding. So basically we're tokenizing litigation funding to actually build an investment, almost like a bond for people, where they can invest in a litigation procedure and fund it, and then depending on what's the outcome of that, there's the initial payment of their bond along with
some reward for the outcome of the.
Exactly,
oh wow! So if the case is successful, then they okay.
And and there are different ways to structure that. So I'm just being very high level with it, but really interesting use case like that. And litigation funding is something that is really starting to grow. And the tokenization of it is a whole different approach to it. But that actually reminds me of something else. With tokenization, whether it be litigation funding, whether it be tokenizing real estate, whether it be tokenizing fine art or mines, natural resources, IP, anything that you could consider property. That's what our Toko platform was built for. Fractionalize or tokenize only real world assets. That's really what we've focused on. So, we didn't want to, we don't do crypto. That's an important thing. We do have lawyers who will work with organizations that are working in crypto and do the legal work for them, but the Toko platform is not a crypto platform. It's only looking at real world assets to tokenize. So, real estate.
So it's certificates of authenticity that connect to real world assets backed on a technology, but this is almost irrelevant. It's the physical asset that's the important.
Correct. And it doesn't need to be physical. For instance, like patents or IP could be.
Okay, so intellectual
but
property.
It has a value and it is a demonstrable.
It's a real world asset.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Fine.
The things that are really important with that are two things, and this was very important for me from a kind of like in my heart.
Yeah.
Two things that I really wanted to do while I was working on this with Scott and team in building Toko is one. For our clients, we want to create liquidity for traditionally illiquid assets. Like, if you have a $100 million office building, first of all, you can't move it, right? It's there.
Yeah.
And there are very few people that could actually invest in buying it, right? It's expensive to maintain. There's, so the barrier to entry creates an illiquidity that we wanted to solve for. And the other part of that is creating a democratization of access to those type of investing in those type of assets. So by tokenizing or fractionalizing the value of those assets and getting them through. Oh, and by the way, I do want to mention, we don't enter into the regulated work. We take it all the way through minting the tokens, but the broker dealers, the custodians, and the exchanges are the regulated parties. We were very strict about not entering into that
so
part
you don't
of
promote them either, presumably.
Right. So we'll work with partners, and we have integration of partners of all those areas, but we're not going to enter into that, and that's very important to the law firm.
Yeah.
But the ability to have tokens representing a real-world asset that have the full documentation behind them, the proof of ownership, again, the transparency and the trust that Hedera has enabled us. It's immutable, it's auditable. Everybody who has purchased is KYC'd, is AML'd, know your customer, anti-money laundering. So, doing things the right way. But the fact that someone can come in and when they've passed those basic checks, which really are checks that should be in any financial type of system or ownership, then they're able to make an investment in and take advantage of being able to invest in things that traditionally they never would have had access to. And the number of people now that can participate in those type of investments creates liquidity within the marketplace for those type of assets. And if you take it a step further, and this is really what I would like to see in the future, is if you build a big enough portfolio of real-world assets that have been tokenized, and you have democratized the access to them, well, now institutional investors, for people that, let's face it, it's still very confusing to people. What's a token? Is it crypto or is it not crypto? How do I set up a wallet? How do I know my stuff isn't going to be stolen? There's a lot of things that people are, for a long time, are not going to touch. Because
are you getting that feedback from your clients? Are you getting all that?
I get that feedback from clients. I get it from industry, and again, don't be myopic. Just because you understand this stuff and you're highly technical doesn't mean that most of the population does. And it's the last mile of any solution that's the most important. So if the bulk of the people in the United States, for instance, don't know how to create a wallet and don't know how to store tokens and secure them and so on and so forth, and look, there are still a lot of people that can't use a cell phone or don't even have broadband. So
well, you had guys working for you who didn't have internet.
Right, exactly. So this is how it is. Right? Don't be fooled on this. So if you have that, you know that that's a situation. Well, how do you still democratize access, and how do you make it easy for people? Well, for instance, if institutional investors come in and they build a diversified portfolio or a fund, which Toko can also help with, across these real-world assets, and then turn it around and offer it as a fund in someone's 401k, their retirement account, where I can come in and say, okay, I want 50% stocks, 10% bonds, and 20% tokenized real-world assets in a fund, which I know is further diversified. Well, now you've really made it accessible for people, right? So, and they don't have to watch it every day or worry about it. So that's where I would like to see it go. And I think that you'd asked the question before of where would I like to see Hedera at. I think that if the council members and our industry partners, as well as independent developers, are building solutions that account for that last mile and make it really consumable by the normals, if you will, right? Then Hedera will be wildly successful.
Fantastic. And so, could you touch on just ComCorp just very, very briefly? Because I know you're incredibly busy, you've got to shoot. So, if you wouldn't mind, because I think it's super interesting.
So, in addition to my day job, and where I really spend most of my time with Hedera, and I love it, and that's why I do it, is within the Corporate Utilization Committee, or CorpCom. And again, I'm a coach.
My dyslexia keeps tripping me up.
And I have the same problem, actually. So I have a co-chair, Sai, I mentioned before. So we co-chair the committee. And what is so special about this committee is that that we have TechCom, we have RegCom, which is the regulatory committee. We have MemCom, which is for membership. Who am I forgetting here? We have various committees. CoinCom is another one. But CorpCom, the only mission of CorpCom is to identify use cases, again, within council members and within industry partners. So whether you come to DLA or you come to any of the other 27 council members currently, hopefully going to be 30 soon, and you say, look, I've got a use case and I want to participate within CorpCom, we'll bring your use case in, we'll review it, and then we will work with you to get you the resources, not only to make sure from a business perspective and from a technical perspective that it's correct, but get you the resources from a hands-on experience, also open source code, reference architectures, to actually get you to market so that you have an MVP, a minimal viable product, running on the Hedera mainnet, and then you're able to do business. And I'll give you an example. One of our great council members, ServiceNow, who DLA Piper and ServiceNow have worked very closely together. We brought an idea together about actually tokenizing budgets across different departments in a corporation.
Right.
And anytime work is delivered through ServiceNow, which is a workflow platform, anytime work or an asset is delivered, that work or that asset is monetized. There's a value to it as long as it's delivered within the service level agreement. And when that happens, tokenized budgets are automatically decremented from one department over to another. So what it solves is that age-old problem for large companies of, I want to do chargebacks across departments, or even between business partners and so on and so forth.
It's accountability.
But it's accountability,
issue of accountability.
And it's not allowing one department to bury another department with what their actual costs are. What does it cost to do business? And that also drives towards sustainability. If you're going to have a sustainable business, it's the governance that really drives that sustainability, and this gives governance. But the wonderful thing about it was, between another gentleman who's a great contributor to the ecosystem, Nicola Attico, who's with ServiceNow, he and my team and some folks from the Hedera ecosystem built an MVP in 5 weeks.
Wow.
Right. And we're using it
from
in
standing
production
start
to deployment.
Shipment ready, 5 weeks.
We're using it in production in DLA.
That's a use case example, isn't it?
It's a wonderful use case. And again, it was all driven off of, this is a business problem. You guys have the platform we already use. We have a tokenization engine that we could use. Let's mash this together, use the reference architecture so we're not writing a single line of code that already exists in the ecosystem. And that's a really important point. Whether you get help or you get funding through CorpCom, because we do have the Enterprise Accelerator Program, and also Hashgraph Association and HBAR Foundation have funding, but we don't want to spend any of your money or funding, grant funding, or anybody's time on writing a component that you can just take open source code and use. Plug the Lego blocks together, and what you should spend your time on is, what's the differentiator of the actual application or business model that you have. Work on that, and don't worry about the other stuff that you can absorb.
Because it's been done before. So,
exactly.
So everyone effectively is building on the past efforts of others. So that's amazing. So you only ever have to, within reason, you only have to, somebody has to go first, but then that's done. And you can plug into that.
And that also goes back to the ecosystem of the council. There are going to be certain strengths with them that they're going to contribute in a certain area, others are going to contribute in another area. If you were just one organization, you would be, again, very myopic in what you would be contributing. And we do put a very large focus. Look, Hedera is open sourced, right? The actual DLT. So having these different contributions and also encouraging people, if you write a component that's reusable, open source that. right? That's value to the ecosystem, and we will always ask grant recipients, what part of this or what will you contribute to the open source community? It's that important to us, and I think that is going to really make Hedera successful.
That's amazing.
Versus a lot of the other DLTs that are very, very proprietary at the core, or people don't even know who each other are. Yeah. So it's very hard to collaborate or contribute from an open source perspective.
When you think of, imagine in the sort of physical business world, or I'm just trying to imagine everybody does everything for the first time, like independent silos or the islands. Right. Car mechanics, they learn to become a car mechanic and they make all the mistakes that all car mechanics in the first year of business have made before.
Right.
And they invent a small tool that they only use themselves. But in this, you're creating real world usable, an auction feature on a website or whatever the plugin might be. Mm-hmm. But then you open source that so that when somebody starts day one, they're actually starting on year 5 because people have already gone before and done that. Right. So you can just take it off the shelf, put it all together in a different way, maybe add onto it.
Right, and the adding on is really in 2 areas. One is add on to something for a totally different use case, get to market and go do business. The other one is, I want to contribute this feature into this component that everybody should use because it will be this much more efficient for everybody. People work together on it, and then they can start consuming it across a number of places. So, you can contribute to open source, but what we really encourage, and a perfect example is with the Hyperledger bridge, between Hedera and Hyperledger. Yeah. That's a really important thing from a permissioned and a public and a permissioned side of the equation. We certainly use both on Toko. We look at, there were council members who picked up the open source project and said, we will commit to taking care of this moving forward, right? It's really important, it's one thing to contribute, it's another thing to continue to care and feed for something that, you've worked on.
I could honestly, sincerely talk to you for hours, Andy. You're a wealth of knowledge, and you're such a straight shooter. I really, really appreciate it. I've got one more question because I do know you have to go. There's people waiting for you. I wouldn't be doing my viewers a good service if I didn't ask you about HBAR's price. Now, this is a personal conversation. Where do you see, what's the value of one HBAR?
So the important thing to remember is that HBARs are really used for utility within the ecosystem of making API calls. And it's based on fiat, and then that's the comfortable thing is that, it's not some imaginary valuation to it. It is based on fiat. I would say this, or I'd say a few things. First is I don't own a single HBAR. Wow. And part of the reason is for just like when I worked in financial services and I didn't own any individual equity, I want, especially in my role in CorpCom and within the ecosystem, I want to be able to honestly say to people, look, this is the reason why I encourage you to use Hedera. Here are all of the reasons that make sense for you and you should consume it. I'm an objective party here. I'm not gaining anything from driving up the price of the HBAR or anything like that. So, and that's for me personally. That's how I run my railroad. But look, it is the crypto winter, and the truth of the matter is that even though this is the HBAR is there, certainly people will speculate on it and they'll use it just like any other, whether shorting it or buying it for the long term, that's entirely up to them. You can do that with anything, but HBAR has been unfairly grouped into the problems of what has really happened in the crypto market in general, which is the straight crypto market. I truly believe, there's, even since Davos, and I think there's been a greater awareness, HBAR seems to have gone up a little bit, but my guidance to people right now would be, to me, HBAR seems pretty cheap, and if I were going to know I was going to be making a lot of API calls coming up from my application, be a wonderful way to get going and be able to do it, versus fiat. This is just straight economics. This is not me giving investment advice. If it's just the same way that airlines, they know, oh, well, look, futures on gas are going up, or on fuel. Yes. I'm going to buy a lot of fuel ahead of time or buy them at this price, but I'm hedging, right? Yeah. So, I think between more adoption, will come out of the crypto winter. There's been a lot of bad stuff that's gone on in the crypto ecosystem, and the bad stuff that's gone on in the crypto ecosystem is because of a lack of governance, and it has created a total lack of trust. Right?
Ironically, it should push the value of Hedera up, if anything, because it demonstrates why it's so important.
But I think still that what I've heard more this week, and I still think it's the challenge that Hedera needs to overcome, is people come in here to Hedera House and they start talking and they start learning about Hedera, and it pains me to hear it, but they say, I've never heard of you guys before. Yep. So we need to do a better job. And look, I know the marketing and the comms team with Hedera does a fantastic job, and we all are out there evangelizing because we know it's a fantastic way to do business. But that's something we need to overcome. And I think as you see more awareness, as you see more enterprises and other partners adopting it, and as you see us come out of the crypto winter and put the ne'er-do-wells and the nonsense that's gone on behind us with more governance, and when I say us, I mean the crypto exchanges and things like that, then let's get on with it. And I think if everyone who is business focused and really understands the value of what DLT brings, getting rid of intermediaries, improving that trust, transparency, speeding up the pace of business. If you keep your eye on the ball and stay business focused, get your apps onto Hedera, and when we all come out of this, you'll be that much further ahead. But this would not be the time to slow down, in my opinion.
Really? Right. Okay. Well, that's really reassuring to hear. And it's so refreshing to hear people be so honest, and everybody that I've spoken to at Hedera, the governing council member bodies are willing to admit that there are things to improve on. Everyone's working incredibly hard, because you can't fix problems you won't admit are a problem.
Yeah, so, well, I've found out in my life the day that you're complacent is the day you're in big trouble.
Yeah, you need to be put out to pasture.
You always need to be looking at what can I do better, and I beat myself up a lot, and I always look for constructive feedback, and I know that we're all God's children, have a lot of room for improvement, so we should all be pushing in that way.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
I really, really appreciate it. Wow, guys. It's rare to meet such a knowledgeable, humble, and just so frankly honest and straight to the point person in any industry, but especially at this sort of level, because Andy is a serious player in the corporate world. So I hope you found that as informative and enjoyable as I did. As always, thanks ever so much for watching. I'll see you soon.
And I'd like to just add, feel free to reach out to me on the internet, Twitter.
I'll put your, if you don't mind, I'll put Andy's links in the description below.
I welcome all feedback, as well as if you have something that you want to bring into the ecosystem. I am an entry point, and I will, if I can help you, I will at least get you the right person within the ecosystem. So please reach out.
Wow. See what I mean? What a guy.